The only human being who's not asked the question, can I walk this path, is one who's living in deep unconsciousness. The journey of life itself often asks us to query ourselves about walking its path. There's so much to navigate, and there are times when it seems that the things we must navigate far outweigh our human capacity to handle them. And that's right now, that's where we are. But the Creator has promised to always be present, and there's much evidence bearing witness to the fact that our Creator can be trusted. Whenever we find ourselves on the path, wherever we find ourselves on the path, faith and grace line that path, along with the gifts that we have to bring. Life is full of thorny issues, and race is one of the thorniest, because it interacts with so many of the other justice issues that must be addressed. So much has been said about all of this already, so why are we still talking about the path and asking questions about walking on it? In some ways, the path to follow for racial healing work is narrow. It requires a lot of deep self-reflection and willingness to work on what can at times seem like a lost cause. Decades of work have gone into the enterprise of trying to heal this country of its huge appetite for racial oppression. And while it is an undeniable fact that much good work has been done to deconstruct and destabilize racism, its insidious energy continues to persist. Racism is much like a chronic illness. It must be diligently managed on a daily basis. There are no off days in the management of a chronic illness. There are medicines to take, exercise regimens to follow, dietary restrictions to observe. And I know a lot about that because I have suffered for 38 years from rheumatoid arthritis. And that 38-year tutorial is what I call it, that rheumatoid arthritis has brought to me, has taught me a lot about vigilance and being very intentional about the way I go about living. Living with a chronic illness has taught me a lot about managing racism. It is in some ways reasonable to lament how certain aspects of racism continue to present themselves so forcefully when we thought that we were done with them. In our current moment, one of those places is the new effort to suppress the vote in our country. Many of us believe that the Voting Rights Act that took care of that issue. Now we see that it did not. But we relaxed because we thought that voting was safe, and while we were not paying attention, much was done to undermine our electoral process. It is disheartening, but remains a fact that must be respected. Choosing to stay as conscious as possible about the work of racial healing makes it necessary to carry this consciousness everywhere we go daily. When you embark upon the path to explore your inner community and commit to work for racial healing, the work will be life-affirming and life-changing, and it takes exactly one lifetime to get it done. There is less chance of becoming burned out if you approach racial healing work from the perspective of contributing to personal healing as well as to collective healing in the community. That way it becomes one of the central issues of your life and is honored in that way. While such work certainly can bring many affirming instances when small victories are achieved and serve as encouragement to vigilantly continue holding it always as a journey rather than something to be completed, it's central to surviving. And I want to make that point really concrete in your head, because there is this notion that we should be able to get this work done and we should be through with it. and we should get on to the next thing, whatever the next thing is. Well, the work won't be done until every human being is treated as an equal child of God on the planet. And that's not happening in our lifetime. It's not. So the reality is that's what has to happen. And it's not going to happen in our lifetime, thus we've got to work our whole lifetime. And I think that once you get that straight, you get over with, you know, how many times have I heard, I have traveled all over this country doing this work, and I have heard hundreds of times, particularly from white people, mostly, why can't we just go on? Why can't we just stop talking about it? Why can't we be okay? Just the other day, somebody was saying, well, actually, what do people want? People want to be free. Funny thing, right? People just want to be free. And until that happens, my job and your job is to be working to make that possible. So it's just like breathing. You got to keep breathing until you don't. And you want to keep on breathing. Most of us want to breathe, right? I mean, we like breathing. We like being here. So you got to breathe, you got to breathe, you got to work for racial healing as long as you got to breathe. Because it's always going to be, I mean, I think someday maybe things will be different, but that's not the thing in my head. The thing in my head is faithful, stay faithful and focused, because you know that we have too many systems that are still ready to denigrate and marginalize and mistreat people. There's too much of that happening, and none of us who call ourselves people of faith or conscious people or people trying to be liberated can be okay with anybody not being treated right anywhere on the planet. I mean, you know, we just got to quit this. I got my little stuff over here and it's going pretty well, so let me stay over here and protect myself and keep my head down and see if I can live in peace. We got to get out of it. We got to get out of that bubble. Whether that bubble is all white, all black, all brown, or whatever, it's a bubble that's indefensible in God's kingdom. In God's kingdom, we are being asked to care about everybody and not put ourselves off in our own little ghettos. But we do love our little ghettos, don't we? They make us feel safe. At the end of the day, doing work in this arena has the capacity to lead you back into your own shadow. It is critical to keep your focus as clear and as non-judgmental as possible, because there's always the pitfall of projecting onto others when things do not go well. Keep the lines of communication open with the people in the outer community and ask all the hard questions that need to be asked in any given situation when projecting onto others is a risk. Stay ready to reflect deeply upon your own motivations. Pay attention to what you think when you hear certain kinds of news stories. Ask yourself, what is the basis of your response to stuff? You know, is it coming out of something you know, or just an automatic response that comes out of a narrative, comes out of your own wounding, or are you being really deeply reflective and really looking at having the capacity to look at the situation through the lens of somebody else's eyes, rather than all of these things that blind us? There's so many things that do blind us. I don't mean to imply that the work is too complicated to engage in. It's not. But it demands consciousness if it is to be helpful, and not just one more burden on those who are burdened enough already. The challenge for anyone engaging in racial healing work is to move along in your own healing process and stay awake to personal issues that impact your perspective and behavior. Racism hides in many places and can create a fair amount of confusion. The only remedy for that is self-awareness and a deep commitment to embracing as much truth as possible around your own inner community. Each of us brings to this work whatever gifts and talents we have, along with our brokenness, and the combination of these equips us to be on this path. In some ways, it is simply the path of trying to live as a conscious and creative person on the planet. Racism is just one of the places where that consciousness and creativity are needed, and engaging with it can be healing and enlivening. The most important question that I have ever had to ask myself is, do I want to be well? Do I want to be well? And my answer is yes, I do, so I need to do whatever it takes to get there. However, I do not think that our country wants to be well, nor do I think our faith communities want to be well. I think we want to be a lot of things other than well, because we don't want to do what it takes to get well.